I've been doing photography for over a decade now, and while I still have so much to learn, I've gained a lot of experience along the way. Here are the top 4 things that I've learned when it comes to photography. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out this week's video. Before I start, real quick, I just want to say that by no means do I think I'm the foremost expert on photography. Every day is another opportunity to learn and grow our experience behind a camera, and even after another 10 years of doing this, I'm sure I'm still going to feel like I still have a lot to learn. That being said, people do like my photography enough to pay me for it, so I must be doing something right. Anyways, let's get started. Number 1, rules are meant to be broken. Now, when I say rules, I mean the guidelines of photography for what typically generates a good photograph, like leading lines, rule of thirds, using the correct focal length, and so on. Following these rules doesn't always translate to the best image. For example, let's talk about portraits. If you were to do a quick Google search on what the best portrait focal length is for a lens, you'll probably find 50mm, 85, 100mm and up are considered the most ideal for shooting portraits. The reason for this being that if you use a 50mm or longer focal length, you're less likely to distort your subject and you're going to get better background bokeh with it. But personally, my favorite lens to shoot portraits with is a 35mm, and most of my favorite portrait photographers use wider lenses when shooting portraits. You do have to be careful with your angles and how close that you get to your subject so that you don't distort their features too much, but by getting closer with a wide angle lens, I find that it feels subconsciously more up close and personal with the subject, which translates to a more intimate portrait. Furthermore, another rule of portrait photography I've seen is not to shoot your subject from too high or too low of an angle. However, by breaking this rule, we can drastically alter the perspective of the image and make it much more captivating than a portrait we took just straight on. Experiment with different angles, different focal lengths, different distances from the subject, and so on. Because ultimately, the best images don't come from adhering to certain guidelines, they come from developing your own unique vision behind the camera. Number 2, emotion is the most important element. When you're starting out, it can be really difficult to direct people and capture an emotion, but a photograph that conveys an emotion, whether it be happy, contemplative, melancholic, and so on, will always be far more interesting than a photograph that doesn't. Human beings are emotional creatures. You don't just want to create a visually appealing image, you want to create something that's emotionally impactful as well. And the emotion isn't just in the subject's facial expression and posing either. It's in the light, the composition, how dark or light the image is overall, movement or action captured in frame, the colors used, and so on. Remember that these aren't independent from one another, but we can use all of these elements together to create an emotion with our image. Number 3, clean up the frame. If you want to. This depends on the concept you're going for, but the basic rule of thumb is this: remove everything from the frame that doesn't add to the mood or feeling of the shot you're trying to get. When we have things in frame that don't contribute to the photograph we're trying to get, we're distracting from it. I remember when I first started shooting weddings, I would show up and just kind of capture everything without doing much direction or alteration of the environment other than during the photo shoot. Nowadays, I'm moving furniture, asking people to get changed in different areas of the room if there's less clutter or better light over there, and cleaning up the frame does so much to bring focus to the subject. The less that's going on in the shot, the more your eye is going to be drawn to what you're trying to emphasize. And again, this isn't always the case. Sometimes you're going to want a very messy, cluttered, chaotic environment. Just keep in mind the mood that you're going for with your photo and try and stick to that. Number 4, play with different forms of light. Without light, we wouldn't have our photograph. And there are so many different forms of light you can utilize. I absolutely adore shooting outside under the soft light of dark gray clouds. I feel that this adds a moody vibe, which is often something that I'm going for with my photos. But sometimes you'll be shooting in the sun or indoors or without natural light. And there are loads of methods that we aren't even aware of yet that we can use to light our subject that could create something really cool. And that's why it's so important to experiment and just play with different forms of light. You can use RGB lights, a candle or fire, strobes or cob lights with soft boxes, optical snoots that shape the light, the list goes on. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy either. I shot these shower photos using the flashlight on my iPhone, which is a technique I only discovered during my first shower shoot after realizing my flash wasn't achieving the result I was aiming for. You can get as creative as you want with whatever you want. And this goes back to point number 2 with creating an emotion in our image. Light plays a huge part in that. You can light everything evenly. You can disguise half of your subject in shadow to breathe some intrigue into the image. Just keep in mind that the human eye is naturally drawn to whatever the lightest part of the image is. And knowing this, you can emphasize certain parts of your image or disguise other parts of your image. There's no end to the different vibes you can get from your photo just by changing the lighting alone. That's the end of this week's video. I hope that you got something out of it. Don't forget to hit that like button and drop a comment below because that stuff is the lifeblood of YouTube videos. And if you aren't already subscribed, be sure to do that because I'm going to keep cranking out more videos every Monday. Anyways, thanks again for watching and I hope that you all have a great week. Keep on creating and I'll catch you next time. Hard cut.